Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TG, here to give you another one of my movie reviews, and this time I'll be giving you my review on the newest addition in the DC Cinematic Universe lineup of films, this one being titled Shazam. Now, this movie was directed by David Sandberg, and it stars Zachary Levi and Mark Strong as pretty much the two primary characters, antagonists and protagonists. And without going too many spoilers, it basically tells a very, very basic origin story of the character of Shazam. Now, apparently the elder wizard who goes by the name Shazam is apparently looking for a new champion because he's getting old and he's losing his powers, he's growing weaker. And when the apparent 7 deadly sins in like monster form kind of choose a host and then escape into the world, then the wizard Shazam has to basically pick a new champion very, very quickly, and he picks the, I believe, 14-year-old teenager Billy Batson. I think that's his last name. And this kid suddenly realizes that he has all these powers, and after kind of going through a number of stages in which he kind of discovers his powers, then he has a number of personal issues, he decides that he needs to take on Mark Strong's character, who has become the host of these 7 deadly sins, and hopefully battle it out for just save the day, I guess. Now, I'm going to say this. I was a little bit on the fence about Shazam because as someone who is a comic book fan, the challenge for me is that there are a number of characters that I grew up with, and therefore I'm already a pre-fan of those characters going into any sort of film adaptation of them. For Shazam, it's not so much, because this is a character that I'm, not a fan of. And outside of the basics of his character, I don't really know much about the character. I don't know the full extent of his powers. I don't know who he fights. I don't know any of his story arches. And so this movie had to do a really, really good job of trying to make me a fan of this character when I left the theater. And unfortunately, this movie did not do that. Now, I'm going to go over what I really liked about this film. I think that the casting across the board was absolutely fantastic. I think Zachary Levi does a pretty good job kind of embodying that sort of childlike essence of, having all these powers and being a little bit arrogant and, just kind of using his powers for all these kind of weird uses. That was perfectly fine. Mark Strong as a villain, guy nails it every time. There's some actors that just they know how to play evil, and he does it very, very well. There are a number of kid actors that Billy Batson's character is living in this sort of like foster home house. I think all of them were cast very, very well. I thought some of the extra characters throughout the film were handled very, very well. So casting-wise, everyone was great. I thought some of the action scenes were not the best that I've seen, but I think that for this particular Origins films, I think they worked. They just, they weren't spectacular. I'm not going to be like looking them up exclusively on YouTube when they're eventually uploaded. And another thing I kind of liked is I liked how it wasn't so over the top. I mean, some of these like superhero films like to go all big and over the top. This one was very self-contained, and I appreciate that. Like it's like when you're dealing with these type of films, it's very, very tempting to want to go big. But I like how it kind of kept it kind of small and like not too over the top. Now, here's where the problems start coming into place. Number one, I had some issues with the pacing and some of the directions that the story was going. A lot of this film is very, very predictable, and that kind of hurts. And when you have a character like Shazam that I don't know much about, I think the film had to try a little bit harder to get me invested. And while I thought that the performances from the actors was well, I just don't think it made me like the characters anymore. Like, as great as Mark Strong is as a villain, he was also kind of forgettable. I still do not know who that guy was. I do not know, because I don't know the villains, I don't know these characters. And there's a couple of things that this film does that I was surprised about, and I was happy to see and surprised, but I know nothing about them, and therefore there was a serious disconnect. Another thing that happened in this film that I'm telling you, I am sick and tired of seeing this happen. I hate it when the DCEU films do this, and I hate it when the MCU movies do this. when there is any type of situation that is causing a major ruckus, which, trust me, there are plenty of moments in this film that does it, they never explain where are the other heroes. And I was not fazed at all by the little cameo they had at the end. Like, I'm sick and tired of seeing this. You have to give me an explanation. Now, the reason why I was able to let this pass in Aquaman was because after 2 horrible films, with Batman v Superman being one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen, and the complete utter mess that was Justice League, I was just desperate for anything decent. So I was willing to let that go. And that's why I ended up enjoying Aquaman as much as I did. And trust me, I really enjoyed that film. So hoping that the momentum would continue, I wasn't going to let that pass this time. And unfortunately, they do it here, and it annoys the hell out of me. Another thing that also kind of really annoys me is the need to throw in certain plot points that I think go nowhere. And this movie has a few of them that I think if you had taken those elements out, it wouldn't have changed anything. And the villain's backstory I thought was just a complete waste. And how he got used to his power so quickly is never explained. I mean, these little things you can get away with in later films, but as an origin story, I'm kind of the type of person who wants to go, I need as much detail as possible. The more detail for an origin story, the better. Don't just assume that I know this stuff, because I don't know this stuff. Now, having said that, I still did walk out of the theater enjoying the film. It's just, unfortunately, I kind of got the same feeling that I get for the mass majority of MCU films, in which I don't regret paying and seeing this in theaters, but this sadly is not something that I plan on ever watching again. And with the presentation of the character of Shazam himself, I just don't see him working. It just feels like he doesn't fit with the tone that the Justice League has set up. Unless they want to turn everyone into like a jokey character, in which we already had one comic relief character, or several comic relief characters in Justice League, and I don't think we need another one that's even more comic relief. And therefore, it kind of makes him feel out of place. And I'm just going to make this statement right now. We still don't know anything about what The Rock's Black Adam is going to be like, but that is a character that I do know very, very well. And I have a hard time buying that this version of Shazam would work well going up against someone as charismatic as The Rock. And I'm sure he's going to bring that charisma to his Black Adam, which we're still looking for an update. I still want to know when that character is going to show up. But when he does, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy them being adversaries. Now, if I had to give this Shazam movie a rating, sadly, I'm going to have to give it a C+. Now, please, do not make it seem like I hate the film. I just had a good number of problems, but I did like this film. And please, I absolutely advise that you go out and see this film. As far as I can remember, I think this movie has a 92 on Rotten Tomato, and I think that for the mass majority of people that will go see this film, I think that score is very well deserved. So please, go see Shazam, because I'll tell you this much, that was kind of strange. I don't know what was going on with my screening, but for a 4 p.m. playing on a Thursday afternoon, my theater was empty. Like in a theater that could hold at least like 150 people, there was only like 10 of us. So I hope that this film does well at the box office, because I want this momentum with the DCEU to continue. So those are my thoughts on the Shazam film. If you happen to see it, I'd like to share your guys' thoughts, or if you guys can give me some information that might help change my opinion, I would really appreciate it. And if you could also, be sure to press one of the links in the description down below so you can follow me on all my social media outlets to keep track of me and my future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.